That's just a stupid boulder.
It's not just a boulder.
This is a lung, and it's been certified human 100%. And they're flat like a pancake like that because there was a great flood at one time, and all these things solidified in some kind of salt water solution, and then it got replaced with clean water.
Welcome to the Information Revolution, guys. This is going to be our 5th lecture, and this time we are discussing a very unique conspiracy. This one was a fan suggestion brought to us by a fan on Twitter. He was by Singe on YouTube. Thank you so much for the suggestion, Singe. A link to his channel is going to be in the description below. And so, just as a little disclaimer, today's conspiracy is a religious conspiracy. And I know almost nothing about the Christian religion and the specifics of Bible passages. So if I get anything wrong, or if it seems like I'm, being a little mean, keep in mind that I'm not being malicious. I'm just a little ignorant of the religion as a whole. So, on to the actual theory. There are some people out there that believe that every single rock, boulder, cliff, mountain, certain islands, basically any kind of geological formation that you can think of, are actually directly human giants. Like, gigantic human beings died, and that's why we have mountains. So, and of course not just humans, but we're gonna get into it. There's quite a bit, but it's mostly humans. Now, this theory is based on the idea that Christian creationism is true, and that when God created the world and all that jazz, and Nephilim of the biblical age, like, all of that happened. So, a race of angels came down from heaven, interbred with humanity, and that's how we got the Nephilim. And then the Nephilim are these like giant, supermassive human angel hybrids that then died and turned into every single rock on the planet. Like, we're gonna get into it. It's every fucking rock. Now, clearly this has, some implications for the rest of history and society and all that, and that means that history would have to be completely rewritten if this theory were true, seeing as it would now have to align with pretty much every biblical account, because obviously everything in the Bible is true if the Nephilim are real. So the Nephilim are kind of a race that we've touched on briefly in the past. We've mentioned them, I think, in the in one of our other videos. We've briefly mentioned the Nephilim and what they mean to a lot of conspiracy people, and they do come up in a lot of conspiracies. Like, if it's not reptilian aliens, it's the Nephilim. If it's not, ancient aliens, it's the Nephilim. Like, they are a little bit of a cliche, but they're in this theory, and they are very important in this theory. Now, from a Christian worldview, the Nephilim are the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. This is believed by some to mean that fallen angels, so not good angels, but the ones that fell, mated with human women, and the resulting children were deemed warriors of renown. But some translations refer to them as giants, and they are referred to in the Book of Enoch as being 4,500 feet tall, which is fucking insane, because, first of all, the tallest building we have currently, I think, is the Burj Khalifa, which is only, 2,712 feet tall, or something crazy like that. So, so this thing could use that. Well, let's not say what it could use that for. That building is... Never mind. The issue here is that something that big would have gigantic fucking bones, right? So obviously, like, if you're discovering giant fucking bones, then what else is there to say? Like, if you've got the physical evidence of giant fucking the bones of someone that would have been 4,500 feet tall, that proves the biblical account correct. The issue here is that bones are not the only thing that mud fossil experts are claiming are fossilized. And not all of the fossils that they're finding are on the same scale. And then I'm thinking back to my research, and I don't think the mud fossil people have ever claimed to have a fossilized bone. Like, thinking back on, because I've been watching videos on this for like 3 or 4 days now, and I don't think any of them have ever claimed to have anything made of bone that's been fossilized. Everything that they're claiming to have is flesh, and we're going to get into why that's strange and wrong.
I was looking at the video of it, and oh my gosh, look at all that. You know, and they're just called formations. No. Those are body parts. So I'm looking around in there, and I'm picking out this and picking out that. I'm just the strangest. Absolutely strange.
So, you can see that this is the kind of evidence we're working with here. Let's look at a couple more examples of rocks that are being shown as like 100% proof that, you know, giants exist and somehow got perfectly fossilized.
No question it's a giant human being, and that is the fingerprints. And the fingernail is flawless. See that? That's a finger. And this is the skin where it comes up and meets the fingerprints. Okay? It's called grip skin.
No. That's... Okay. It's rocks. Those are rocks, miss. They're rocks. They're not fingers and toes and a nose. Like, what is going on right now? So, like, I'm sorry, I don't usually like to be so dismissive. Like, if you guys have seen my previous information revolutions, you'll know that I do really like to put myself in the position of someone who believes the theory, and like, I do really try to treat every theory as true while I'm explaining it, and treat every version of that theory as true while I'm explaining it. But I don't know, man. I can't do it. Like, you won't believe how fucked up I was in the head after the chemtrails video. Like, holy shit. I really did a number on my mental health with that one. But the problem I'm having here, because keep in mind that what I'm showing you guys is not everything that I've seen, because I've probably seen around like 6 or 7 hours, maybe even more of this footage from a few YouTubers that cover this subject. Is honestly, I just don't find myself being convinced, which is...
It looks like there's toes and fingers, and right up there is a nose. You have to remember, when all these parts washed in and sloshed in together and piled up like this, they weren't stone. So, you know, this could easily happen.
Which is kind of strange for me, because I am extremely gullible. Like, oh my god, you would not believe how gullible I am. When I started my newest job, I tried to convince HR, I tried to convince human resources not to take my income tax out of my paycheck, because I was convinced that it was unconstitutional for the government to have an income tax. Yeah, I was wrong. I pay income tax now, guys. Please don't tell the IRS to come after me. I recently just settled up with them from some other shit, but I am that gullible that I believed like 3-hour YouTube videos telling me that income tax had no reason to exist, and that, you know, the entire population of the United States was being lied to. So that's the level of gullible we're dealing with here, and this theory can't convince me. So to me, it just kind of seems like this guy. So the primary YouTuber we're going to be looking at is Mudfossil University. And it kind of seems to me like this guy just sees things and automatically, like, to him, they're just tendons. Like, everything is fucking tendons to this fucking dude. It's insane.
It's fun. The anatomy's fun here too. Now here's a selenite. See, that's tendon. That's exactly what Becky sent me. Only she sent an abrupt transition, and you really can't see it well. I don't think. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. Almost everything that you see, even this, you see these? That's biological. You see a person there? That's the inside of a tendon ball. I'm telling you, and I will show you, the ball goes like this, and they have all of these fibers inside. So I'm going to try to make this is going to be kind of a little tricky to see the balls, but the balls and straps are here.
So, here's kind of one of the things about this theory that I really don't like, is that you guys might not know this about me, but I am a huge fucking rock nerd. I'm one of those guys that, as a kid, I had a rock collection, and, you know, I know all about rocks and minerals and crystals. I've got crystals all over my house. Like, I have, like, a bunch of crystals within fucking, you know, within arm's reach of me, even right now. Like, look at that. Clearly, this is a giant's eye. Oh, no, wait. It's a giant's vein. Ooh, no. I love crystals and rocks and minerals. It's kind of my thing, you know. I like them a lot. I'm not into the whole, like, crystal healing and, like, whatever, but I have cool rocks all over my house. It's great. But, so he's saying that selenite, that long, clear crystal, is tendons. Now, selenite is a sedimentary crystal that forms when water containing certain minerals, like, slowly dries away. The sediment falls to the bottom of usually like a clay lake bed or something, right? And as that sediment collects in one place, it stacks together and forms a crystal. So selenite is made of something called gypsum. And selenite, as far as I can tell, because I did quite a bit of research and Googling to find specifically the answer to this question, selenite cannot form fossils. I could be wrong about that. You know, if anybody at home has, like, a degree in geology and knows that I'm wrong, I'd love to hear about it, because I fucking love learning about crystals and shit. But as far as I am aware, selenite cannot form crystals. Selenite has a Mohs hardness of 2. That means it is so soft that you can scratch it with your fingernail. If selenite were made, if tendons turned into selenite, like, these things, we're going to get into how tall they are. The structural integrity of these things, like the Achilles tendons, need to be insane for them to even consider to be existing. They can't be made out of the same thing that selenite is made out of. Selenite is essentially made out of like gypsum. So I could be wrong, but selenite cannot be a fossil. Now, the way fossils form is that something organic dies, all of the meat, you know, is eaten away or rots off, right? And then, like, you've got your fossil, you've got your bones on the bottom of, like, a lake bed, right? And as the sediment goes over the top of them, water leaches through, and it brings the minerals from the sediment above it through the bones. And because your bones are organic, the minerals slowly replace the organic compounds in your bone until they've formed, like, a perfect cast of the bone. Not a cast, but they've filled the empty space where that bone was as it slowly disappears. So that's why you only get fossils in the shape of bones, because fossilization takes so long that there would be no flesh left. So permineralization would never happen to a tendon. So, the other thing is that permineralization primarily happens with silicate minerals, meaning silica, silicon. Like, we're talking about stuff like quartz. We're talking about agates. We're talking about hard minerals, you know? These things have, like, a stronger internal structure than fucking selenite, which you could probably break apart with your bare hands. I do really want to know what the fuck is up with this dude in tendons, though. He's completely fucking obsessed with tendons. Everything is tendons to him.
Okay, there's your wrinkle zone. Devil's Tower. That's what it is, my friends. I'm sorry, but that is exactly what it is the foot of a giant. And usually there's only 1 foot above the ground. They say, well, why is that? Well, one of them normally is pushed deep into the ground trying to push the other one out. These died in a great flood. I'm sorry, that was what was written, and that's what happened. And they tried to push themselves out of the mud. One's deep and one's up at sort of surface level. That's what I have discovered. Now, you could see here, I don't know if you can see in your monitor, but there's going to be a spot right here where there's a little bit of blood leaking out. Now, it is what it is. These are the wrinkles that wrinkle right around the bone of the heel. And if you look at the rear of this thing, there's 2 big brown blood spots.
All right, so Devil's Tower is an Achilles tendon, he says, right? So let's go for it. Let's see how tall these things would have been. So Devil's Tower is 5,112 feet tall, according to Wikipedia, which I don't care if people say not to use it as a source. I'm doing it anyways, because who's going to go in and edit the fucking height of a mountain to be different, you know? Who gives a fuck? So, here I take the image of a whole body. I take the Achilles tendon, I stack a bunch of them up, and see how many Achilles tendons to make one person tall. Oh god, I hate this. I did this in Paint 3D for you people. And I even counted off how many pixels I was away on the last tendon. Because, you know, sure, you look at it and it's half a tendon. But then you're me and it's 5 a.m. and you're still awake because you're writing the script and it's not a half a tendon. It's 53% of a tendon. And that matters. So, anyway, that gives us one human being, a normal human being, is 5.53 Achilles tendons tall. Reasonable. So, then we take 5,112 feet and we multiply it by 5.53. And that gives us 27,093.6 feet tall. The tallest building in the world, which I mentioned earlier, is 2,717 feet tall. I think I might have said 12 earlier in the video, but who cares about 5 feet? This thing could swat an Evangelion like a fucking gnat. This thing is a monster. It is 5.1 miles tall. Miles tall. That's insane. So, this is nightmare fuel. Like, if this ever physically existed, because keep in mind this would have existed way back in the past when we were like hunter-gatherers or whatever. So just imagine, you know, you step out of your cave, it's a beautiful morning, and then something fucking blots out the sun, and this giant fucking monstrosity stretches over the fucking horizon, takes one step, devours fucking everything in your immediate area for a fucking snack, and then drinks your entire nearest lake. You're just fucked. If these things existed, humanity would never have evolved. Like, holy shit. Now, a normal 6 foot tall man weighs between 144 and 186 pounds. Pretty reasonable, right? You know, you could be a little over, you could be a little under. Who cares? Nobody cares. Now, this thing is 4,515. No, this thing is 4,515.6 times larger. So it weighs between 325 and 420 tons. So not only is this thing unreasonably tall and unreasonably heavy, like, you keep in mind the fact that its legs could not possibly support it. The calories it would need to consume to stay alive. I found a calorie calculator that didn't cap the height and weight limits. So take this measurement with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I found a calculator that let me put in this monster's height as a number and its weight as a number. And it needs 8.1 million calories a day, which is about 7 or 8 whole cows. But again, I got this figure of 1.1 million calories per cow off of Reddit, so take that however you want it. Either, it could be anywhere between 6 to 15 cows a day to keep this thing fed. And I didn't calculate how much water it would need to drink. So only one of those monsters would essentially destroy any, like, small civilization it came across just by living its own life. You can't support, like, an area cannot support these existing for very long. So keep in mind that just one of those would destabilize a local ecosystem and essentially kill any humans trying to live in the same area. And people believe that there were hundreds of these things roaming around. And not just giant humans, but, like, other crazy ass shit too, just, like, casually existing alongside these things.
As everyone knows, the dragon and the fish are over in this area. They are over here. And here, of course, there's the gigantic fish right there. And everybody that's been following me knows this. Now, there's the fish. There's this fin up here. It's being attacked by this gigantic dragon up here. And it's spitting out this nasty dragon stuff. I don't know what they call it, but it's the stuff that burns people up. And it did. It burnt up that fish's fin. You see what it did to the fish? It destroyed his flesh. The rest of it's nice and vital and pink, and it looks pretty good. Now, the dragon runs all the way from here down his dragon-scaled throat with his fiery eye. They talk about that in the text, which we're going to look at in a second. And this is all the dragon scales of his throat. I mean, how could there's no human being that wants to deal in the realm of reality that can look at that and say, "Oh no, Roger, that's just accidental, just happened." It's not. This is the runoff of dead, decaying flesh. It's a red-blooded creature, and it is freaking gigantic. It goes all the way from there to all the way down to here. So don't tell me it doesn't. This is where it's still rotting off his tail. Same stuff, the dragon scales. Now, so we see.
I'm not even going to begin to start calculating how much food the continent-sized dragon would need to eat, or how large it is, or how big that fucking fish would have been. But, like, come on. It's a dragon that takes up the entirety of northern Africa. The entire Sahara Desert is dead dragon. Like, that's a little bit of a stretch. So you kind of have to ask, like, why people believe this, and, like, what kind of worldview people that are into this kind of theory have, because it's all about how, like, archaeologists are keeping this hidden knowledge from you, and this is the true history of the world. And, like, a lot of conspiracies claim that they are about uncovering the true history of humanity, and, like, humanity's real past, and, like, the biblical truth, and, like, or, like, oh, ancient aliens created humanity by genetically engineering us, or, like, there's always some, a lot of theories interact with humanity's ancient past. And so you kind of got to wonder, like, why do you pick this flavor of humanity history revisionism over others? And I kind of think that the reason you pick this one over, aliens or something else being in humanity's ancient past is because it proves the Bible true. If giant dragons and giant humans and all this other stuff that's like perhaps vaguely referenced in the Bible, if all of those turn out to be true, then the Bible is true, and that makes Christianity, or at least, the big three monotheistic religions, it makes them true. And I think that's very important for some people.
It's just undeniable, the things that we are missing, and it's because we've denied God and His creation. And this was created by God. I don't see any other way of getting around this. There is got to be one gigantic creator God. In my world, that's what's going on. Anyway, God bless you all, and I really honestly now believe in God, and I believe in Jesus and all that stuff. I think that is all very factually shown to have been real. And that's what I needed. Now, I know that that isn't what God wants. He wants you to believe because you believe in God more than you believe in anything else. And now I do. But there was a time I didn't. So.
From those clips, we can kind of see that he is a creationist and he is a Christian, but he kind of seems to have taken like a hodgepodge of various religious beliefs and blended them together to be kind of his own like unique brand of Christianity, which I'm 100% all for. If you like one part of one religion, but you like the mythology or some other aspect of another one, and then maybe you like the afterlife of a different religion, like, whatever you want to believe, like, more power to you. Like, blend those together and make, like, whatever feels comfortable for you, But religion is just whatever you want it to be. So he seems to have based most of his worldview off like classical Christian creationism. However, he also believes in Greek mythology and South American mythologies to a certain extent. He mentions in some of his videos that Nagas existed and were 100% factual and true, that the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatlus is a dinosaur, isn't it?
Quetzalcoatl.
He claims that the feathered serpent is real, and then of course the dragons are somehow watchers and shapeshifters. The giant fish are also real, and like a lot of this is predicated on like they all died out in Noah's flood. And those that were too tall to be killed by drowning, or things like the fish that couldn't have died from drowning, were killed when God sent superheated rain through the magnetosphere? I don't know. Here's a clip of that.
I have a statement to make about that. Or actually several. The giants we have found certainly would not have been able to be drowned, and that would be an accurate statement. They just were going to be too tall, absolutely. And that's the stuff that Tyson has. Now, secondly, the flood coming from above, being superheated. I have been studying the magnetosphere and how our Earth creates gravity and magnetism, and it is and how it scrubs through the surrounding atmosphere out in space. It's not a vacuum. Tons of particles. We are ripping through the scrubbing. We are creating tons of friction. That friction makes that magnetosphere 56,000 degrees. And if God sent that rain through the magnetosphere, it would come down at 56,000 degrees. It would start to trickle down to maybe hit 10,000 degrees by the time it hit the Earth. Because they were way up there getting it hit first. Maybe the people on the Earth wouldn't have got scolded, but those guys would have got burnt their faces off.
Like, okay, so he clearly believes in God, like, with the capital G, but he also believes in gods as a plural, and he clearly keeps them separate from the biblical God. So, I think the type of person who would believe or be interested in this theory are going to be, like, mostly rural people who were raised Christian or raised around Christianity, who usually, like, maybe they're farmers, or they live in a small town with lots of empty land surrounding them, or maybe they live near a forest, because those are the kinds of people that are more likely to spend a little bit more of their free time wandering through nature, you know, hiking, going through the forest. Maybe they live near some sort of stream, and they see weird shaped rocks. So they, you know, maybe they go out into the forest, they're living in a Christian background, so they see, like, a cool weird rock, they pick it up, and then they go home and they Google, like, oh, I have a rock shaped like a human hand, what is this? And that directs them to Mudfossils. And then they find this guy, Mudfossil University, and some of the other Mudfossil YouTube channels that are like, Mudfossils are the proof that the Bible is true. And that kind of, like, gets these people interested in going back out, finding more fossils, sharing them on Facebook groups and that kind of stuff. And I've been to those Facebook groups and seen some of the content that they're putting out, and it's rocks. There's lots of pictures of rocks. Oh my god. So many of these people just have, like, buckets and buckets of rocks in their backyards. And they're like, yep, every single one of these rocks is a mud fossil. And I'm like, no, please. Okay, I get it. The rocks are shaped like something. Thank you. But, you know, also, like, the same kind of woman who would be into, like, love and light and crystals, guys. Crystal energy all the time. They're the exact kind of person who would be into this. Like, rock and crystal ladies, prime targets for this kind of theory. Yeah, so I'm mostly blaming, you know, women between 25 and 60 who fall for the kind of spiritual, like, collect all these rocks and, like, ooh, I have all these rocks in my house and this one just speaks to me. But instead of it being like, oh, I felt the vibrations from this rock when I was out in nature, now it's like, I saw what seemed to have been a piece of a face and I brought it home and, like, look, here you can see the cheekbone. And now they just have, like, weird shaped rocks. And a lot of the ladies on the Facebook group were making, like, statuses about how, oh, my family doesn't understand, but they let me keep my bowl of rocks in the dining room, so that's just the kind of people that believe in this theory, and that's totally fine. So I'd like to take a minute, because we've talked about what the mud fossils are, you know, we've talked about who believes in them, we've talked about how those kinds of people, like, see the world and what sort of things they believe in. But what we haven't talked about is, like, how he says the mud fossils are formed, which is very important. So I have a few clips here. They're from Mudfossil University. He's the main channel that's putting out this kind of content. He's really dedicated. He seems like he's putting out lots and lots of videos about this. He has hundreds of videos on his channel. And I just don't want this video to seem like a targeted attack on this dude's channel, because he seems like a sweet old man, but he is also the be-all, end-all source for this theory. So whenever possible, I am using videos from other channels, but you can't beat the source. Like, Roger is the source of all of this. He is Mr. Mudfossil. So every other channel is just directly referencing him. Like, there's no channel that I've found that anybody has put out close to the same level of detail to their work, like the same amount of like the entire theory is built upon like the stuff that he says, as far as I can tell. So here's some clips from him about how mud fossils are formed, and we'll see.
What happens in the mud fossils is it's completely replaced with minerals. They invade the surface, and they invade in a specific way. It's very, very easy to understand how they invade. And SiO2 is silicon dioxide, and the silicon in the skin, which is 50 times more dense, becomes plated, and it seals the skin. Literally seals it like it's plating a cheap ring, and then the inside begins to get invaded, but only by the tiniest molecules, because that plating is like shingles on a house, and it has a certain permeability, but only the smallest molecules like H2O and OH minus and the very invasive molecules can get in through those little cracks and get in there, and then they do their bonding and destroying of the contents of the organics. It's just the way it works. And other than that, your hydrogen and your volatile organics are sublimated out, and that's what is in the earth as methanes and biogases. Now, I had some here. This one here turned so red, it bled out of here. Now, that was years ago, so I don't think it's going to do much anymore. But my point is that there's no such thing as you can't get blood out of a rock. Almost every rock contains blood.
He's talking about permineralization. Like, when he is saying what did he say? The silicon in the skin reaches 50 times, and then it covers, and then, more gets in. Like, he's talking about permineralization, but he's talking about like a weird version of it where this silicon is coming out of nowhere and coating the organism. That is not how it works. Long before like these minerals would have started replacing the skin would have rotted away. Like, that's just how meat works. It would have been eaten away by insects. It would have been taken by wild animals. It would have rotted. Like, for whatever reason, that just doesn't come up. So, and then he's talking about how with the permineralization, the surface permineralizes, right? It becomes rock, but the inside is still meat for a much longer period of time. I don't understand how that, like, I don't know, man. Where is all of this silicon coming from, right? Like, where are all of these minerals coming from? Because if all rocks are mud fossils, where are these base elements to make mud fossils coming from? They have to be leached from rocks by water. So, it's not how fossilization works. I mean, if this was different, if it wasn't, I have lungs, I have kidneys, I've got a heart, like, if he wasn't showing us soft tissues and muscles and, like, just regular body parts, like, he claims to have so many fingers and toes and stuff, like, if he was showing us, like, here's a bone, like, here's, like, just bones, like, here's a rib, here's a skull, like, if he had fucking giant skulls and like giant finger bones and like giant, like, that would be crazy. Like, if he had giant fossilized bones, I would be 100% here for this. this would be a very different video. I would be fucking all over it, because there are people who say, like, hey, I found a 12-foot tall human skeleton, like a complete human skeleton, and then the Smithsonian came and took it away and it never came up again and it's never been heard about. Like, there are people who say that they have found more reasonably sized giant human skeletons in different parts of the world, and they have possibly falsified, I haven't looked into it, they have pictures, but they don't have the bones anymore, but they claim to have seen them. Now, that's completely different from this theory, where instead of fossilization somehow preserving, like, instead of fossilization working how it works in the real world and preserving bones, in this theory, for whatever reason, it preserves entire body parts and skin and flesh first.
They're in all different sizes, little tiny, tiny, tiny ones. I have this one right here. This is a lung, believe it or not, that's a lung. And this right here, that little tiny dot, is the airway that goes in. I don't know, it's a chipmunk or something, I don't know. And this is what leaks out. The blood fluid leaks out, and it died in this. You see how it's flat on the bottom?
And this isn't just exclusive to him. Like, every channel that covers this theory is going off this idea that it's not bones that are being preserved, but it's actual, like, fleshy body parts. Everybody's going off about lungs, tendons, fingers. Like, yeah, sure, there's bones in your fingers, but they're not showing us finger bones. They're showing us, hey, here's a whole fucking finger, or like, oh, it's somebody's head. Like, no, that's not how fossilization has worked ever.
He sent me actual vitamins and minerals. I mean, I'm serious. That is floating through the blood of these creatures. And this will pick up and deliver products to the tissues. That's what these things do.
That is, holy cow, that's a purple rock.
That's what it does. It picks up and delivers from that transition metals.
Fossilized red blood cells. You can't fossilize a red blood cell. You can't. You can't. You can't. Why would it be that big? The giant is 5.1 miles tall, so his red blood cells are fucking this big. That's... I'd also just like to say that I feel really bad for his monitors. He's always fucking tap, 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 tap. And you can, like, see the screen, like, flicker a little bit when he does it. Oh my god. As a gamer, it really hurts me. Right here, right in the heart. So, I don't know. It's like, and other channels are doing this. Other channels are claiming that, because that wasn't him. You know, that was his friend. Oh fuck, what's his name? Not Roger. They're not both Roger. I don't remember the other channel's name, but that's another guy who sends him his footage, and also has his own YouTube channel. Who's, I think he's in Brazil, and he's claiming that this, like, dry riverbed is like the cell membrane of some giant skin, and like Roger has little bits where he's like, yeah, this is the selectively permeable lipid barrier of the giant cell, and over there, that hole, you can see that's where the protein that lets other things in and out of the cell is. And it's like, Roger, when mud dries out, it forms cracks like that. That's just how mud dries. That's dried mud. It's mud. It's mud fossils. Fuck. He's got me. He's got me there. He's got me there. And then you got this dude, and Okay, this one is really scary. This one is terrifying. This dude is claiming that this island is like a screaming dead Titan's face. Like, check this shit out. This is fucking wild. That's fucking terrifying. Who the fuck would ever willingly go live on fucking cursed dead giant skull island? Because you know that island is fucking cursed. Like, you do not have an island shaped like a screaming human face without it being like the most cursed fucking place on the planet to live. I would no. No, you do not live there. Why is there a whole fucking town on this cursed ass land? If any of you on this island see this video, fucking leave. Because some necromancer's gonna come by and fucking raise that dead Titan skull from the dead, and y'all are fucked. Y'all are ground zero of the fucking Titan. The Titan fucking island resurrection. That would be like a Titan Island Resurrection. That'd be an okay band name, I guess. Maybe. Anyway, you're all gonna die on that island. Get the fuck off that island. So then, aside from cursed giant skull island, we also have him claiming that humanity at some point built houses out of these giants. Like, right after they died, we took some sort of machine and like carved bits of them off and turned them into structures. So one, he's claiming that we had like industrial machinery when these giants died, and two, we just built stuff out of them. The meat. Okay, so let's take a look at that real quick.
All right. Remember I told you there was tendons and there was tire tracks in them and they were cutting slabs like we have machines. They did the same thing. This is, look over here, see that? That's like tank treads. You see this? It's like tank treads. And then those wheels sunk in because it was wet, and this was a tendon. And I will show you this in extreme detail. Hold on. You remember what the tendons look like. That's what they are. These are the slabs they cut out of them from that tractor cutter, and then they built these walls in the back. This wall, they cut the bumps, they cut the chunks, and some of them still had blood in them. See, that's like a bone, and there's a blood leaking out of it. Normally they didn't use those. This one here, look at that, that's just a pile of scraps. Now, normally they would cut those out. Now, on these, you're going to see bumps here and there. All right, here's the exact same machine, identical, driving through a different area where you can see as it drove through. This is mineralization, and this is a tendon as well, only this is selenite. However, that is the stuff right there that would be in this. This is a tendon, exactly the same sort of stuff, only this was in an area where the chemistry washed out all of the organics, took all the organics out except these like little mineralized places. This is also an abrupt transition. This was sent to me by Becky Dorius. Thanks, Becky. It was fabulous of you, my friend. Now, here's another one. That's an absolute perfect example. That somebody made a machine to do this specifically to cut these things. Then they used those things, and it was obviously wet. It didn't sink in there for no reason at all. And these came out perfectly perfect. And these walls were, everybody, oh, how could they possibly do that? They did it because they were moist. And they did this everywhere around the world. Petra was carved out of wet flesh. If you go into the treasury and look, you can see actually where there's blood leaking out of the walls, that they had to drill holes in it to let the moisture out of the walls.
He's claiming that you need like specific conditions to fossilize these corpses into stone, but then at the same time he's claiming that people like took these corpses and chopped them up while they were still meat, and then they built stuff out of them. And okay, sure, like, if you look at the the treasury that he talked out, the treasury at Petra, it does look like meat. It does look a lot like meat, but that's because some rocks are red. They just look like meat, you know? Like, you can find rocks that look like meat because some rocks have red and white patterns in them, and that's not like a crazy reference to the fact that these things were meat at one point. It's just that some rocks are red, you know? So, his whole reason for this being a conspiracy theory is that if everyone knew it was true, then it would force them to believe in God, and then people would suddenly realize that the flood happened, that Nephilim and the angels existed, that the giants were real, there were dragons and shit, and it would prove that the big three monotheistic religions were true. And not just Christianity, because he does also reference Islam and Judaism to support his points sometimes. So all three of them are true all of a sudden, and I don't know how the theology on that would work out, but that's really not my problem. So overall, honestly, like, I don't like to be that guy that just makes like really big long debunking videos, which unfortunately is kind of what this has turned into. But I can't convince myself even for a moment that this is real. Like, it just doesn't work out, you know? Do I want to believe in giant 5 mile tall, like, titans existing and walking across the face of the earth? Absolutely, I do not. Because that's horrifying, you know? Like in my Bigfoot video, I go over, oh, okay, Bigfoot could just be a primate, Bigfoot could be a spirit creature, Bigfoot could be an alien, Bigfoot could be humanity's fucking lost brother race. Like, some of those are fun to believe in, you know? Like, if you want to believe that, you know, humanity and Bigfoot were created together to be best friends and spiritually complete each other, like, that's fun to believe in, you know? That's not horrifying like this. That's not believing that every landmass is essentially the dead bodies of giants, and that, you know, at some point there were 5 mile tall creatures just roaming around, destroying everything in their path just by the nature of their own existence. Like, that's a terrifying belief that, like, God not only exists but destroyed those creations with 10,000 degree scalding rain. That's terrifying. That would be an awesome album cover, but not an awesome reality to exist in. So, especially fucking screaming island face, that's terrifying. That's not good. It's pretty much pure nightmare fuel. So, I don't like this version of reality. But even if we try to entertain it and say, okay, yeah, sure, this exists, this is real, there's so many problems with the existence of any of these creatures. Because, okay, so take the 5 mile tall giant. Let's not even talk about the fucking continent dragon. The 5 mile tall giant, his ankles would snap the minute he took a step. The horizon is like a little bit less than 3 miles away from you at any given time. A man that's 6 feet tall takes about, you know, 2.5 feet per step, you know. So a giant that's 5 miles tall could basically step over the horizon at any fucking moment, and you wouldn't be able to escape. You could probably hide, but they would just appear. It would be horrifying. So there's that. His bones could not support him. His food sources would not be able to keep up with the basic needs that he has to exist. His lungs, when you're 5 miles up in the atmosphere, the oxygen is so thin that you physically couldn't breathe enough. Like, Mount Everest is roughly that tall. I think it's a little bit under. And even up there, the oxygen is so thin that most humans need to wear oxygen masks to live that high up. Like, you just couldn't have it. So, I think that primarily this theory comes from pareidolia, which is defined as the tendency for incorrect perception of a stimulus as an object, pattern, or meaning known to the observer, such as seeing shapes in clouds, seeing faces in inanimate objects or abstract patterns, or hearing hidden messages in music. And I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, the human brain is very good at seeing and understanding patterns, and sometimes we're so good at it that we see patterns even when they're not there. So I think that has a lot to do with why so many people kind of going out into nature and see like what looks like a rock that looks like a human heart, and then they take it and they're like, I found a rock that looks like a human heart. So they Google it, and then they find mud fossils on YouTube, and then they're like, oh, this is what this is. I found an ancient human fossilized heart, even though that's not how fossils work. But here's this guy with all this science on YouTube who says that that's how that works, so I guess it does. So, and the second, I think, most likely cause of this conspiracy theory is just the boredom of this man. Like, not like Mr. Mudfossil is a very, very intelligent man. Like, you may not like his ideas and you may not like his content, but he is very fucking intelligent. He seems to me like the kind of person who, you know, your teachers are always like, oh, you never apply yourself at school. Oh, you're not, you know, mentally present enough in class, because he's so bored with the standard of like schooling and education and like his job. Like, anything mental to Mr. Mudfossil is just not stimulating enough. So he kind of creates this whole elaborate series of events and physics and rules. Like, if you go to this guy's channel, he has so many videos about physics, and like he's created his own entire system of how physics works. It's very strange. And so he seems to me like someone who's never really had to try mentally, and when you don't ever have to try, your brain gets bored. You start, you know, creating elaborate fantasy worlds with their own sets of physics and rules, and you know, some people that do that become authors, and some people that do that become mud fossil conspiracy theorists who've created their entire own universe. And so, in all honesty, I believe that Mr. Mudfossil, what's his fucking name? Roger Spur, I believe. Spur? Roger. His name's Roger. I put his name up on my conspiracy board. I honestly believe that Roger is a good person, and he's doing what he loves. He isn't hurting anybody. So, you know, don't send any hate his way. If you're going to go to his channel after this and watch his videos, you know, be kind, leave a thumbs up. Don't harass this sweet old man. He's a sweet old man. Leave him alone. Give him the views, give him thumbs, maybe subscribe, you know. That would be nice. Be nice to Roger. So, and, you know, if you are watching this, Roger, you know, if you wind up watching this, I really hope you don't take this video as a personal attack on you and your channel. You know, I saw kind of what your workshop looks like, and you've got a whole lot of stuff going on, and that's really great. You've got a good thing going. Don't let my video, you know, seem like an attack on you, even though I'm being a little bit critical of you. Thank you. Well, that's about it from me, honestly. I've pretty much given all of my thoughts on this. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoy the new style of video I'm going for with these information revolutions. Let me know if you have any suggestions for any conspiracy theories or contents, like any channels that maybe don't represent their own entire conspiracy theory, or channels that represent the totality of a single conspiracy theory. Let me know if you have any kind of conspiracy or paranormal or weird thing you want me to cover. Keep in mind that this was a suggestion from Singe on YouTube. His channel will be in the description. So go drop by his channel, give him some views. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And just remember, one of these days, we're going to find out the truth about all of this stuff. And then we'll smash the world's shell and bring the world revolution. Thanks for watching, guys.